If you've ever stayed in a relationship long after you knew it was over, there's a reason. And the wild part, it has nothing to do with love, hope, or strength. It's your chart, your moon, your Venus, your attachment wiring. They'll hold on to certain people way longer than your mind ever would. And once you see which part of your chart is responsible, you'll understand exactly why you stayed and why you couldn't walk away sooner. I'm Alina, and today we are getting into something a lot of you have quietly wondered about. Why you stay in relationships you already outgrew. And let me say this up front. Sarah in New York, Jessica in London, Chris in Chicago, Michael in LA. You're not weak. You're not oblivious. You're not lacking boundaries. You were following an emotional blueprint you didn't even know you had. In this video, I'm gonna show you the exact part of your chart that makes you hold on, the pattern that keeps pulling you back, and the trigger that finally makes you walk away. Once you understand this, everything about your past relationships clicks. So let's get into it. Before Venus, before Synastry, before any karmic narrative, we start with your moon. Your moon chooses comfort over growth. It doesn't ask, is this healthy? Is this aligned? Is this good for me? Your moon asks one thing. Does this feel familiar? And that's why so many of you, Michelle, Amanda, Danielle, stay years longer than you should. Your moon is wired to repeat what it understands. For example, if you grew up around inconsistency, you bond with people who make you anxious. If you grew up around distance, you feel safer with someone unavailable. If you grew up caretaking, you attract people who need fixing. The moon doesn't attach to what's best. It attaches to what feels like home, even if home was chaos. Now, Venus. This is the part of your chart that confuses chemistry with connection. Venus gets pulled toward patterns, archetypes, fantasy, potential, not reality. So you stay because your Venus keeps whispering, but what if they change? But the potential is beautiful. We have such an intense connection. I'm so drawn to them. That's Venus talking, not love. Venus sees what someone could become, not who they're actually being. And when your moon and your Venus team up, you hold on like it's fate, even if it's just a pattern. Some people feel fated because their planets activate the wounds you've carried since childhood. It feels intense, karmic, undeniable. But intensity does not equal compatibility. Sometimes the relationships that shake your soul are the ones recreating your oldest emotional script. And because it feels familiar, your moon latches on, your Venus romanticizes, your attachment system activates. Suddenly, you're staying, not because it's right, but because it feels like something you already know. And here's the final layer, the glue that keeps all of this in place. Your chart reveals your attachment patterns. Moon is how you bond. Seventh house is who you attract. Venus is what you desire. Saturn is where you fear rejection, and Pluto is where you obsess. Together they build the emotional blueprint you call my type. And that blueprint determines why you stay too long and leave too late. Avoidant moons stay out of guilt. Anxious moons stay out of fear. Fixed moons stay out of loyalty. Mutable moons stay out of hope. Cardinal moons stay out of responsibility. You're not staying because you're weak. You're staying because your chart is running the show. But here's where everything really clicks. Every moon sign stays for a different reason. And every moon sign has a very specific breaking point. So let's talk about yours. Starting with Aries Moon. Aries Moon, you stay for the fight and leave for the freedom. You stay because you think you can fix it if you just try harder. You mistake tension for passion and arguments for we still care. You finally leave the second it stops feeling alive and starts feeling draining. You don't walk away because you stop caring. You walk away when you're done trying. But what happens when comfort feels safer than the truth? Taurus Moon, you stay for the history, leave for the self-respect. You stay because of the history, the routine, the life you built together. You'll choose familiar over starting over even when familiar is slowly hurting you. You leave the moment you feel disrespected, or like you're the only one still showing up. And when you go, it's quiet, but it's final. Now, what about the moon that tries to think its way out of a breakup? Gemini moon. You stay for the story and leave for the clarity. You stay because you're trying to understand. You explain every red flag, analyze every conversation, make a story out of the chaos. You leave when your mind gets exhausted and there's nothing new to learn, only loops. And once you check out mentally, the relationship is already over. But what happens when the moon sign stays because the past feels like family? Cancer moon. You stay for the bond and leave for the survival. You stay because you're bonded. The memories, the feelings, the shared life, it all feels like home. You leave when nurturing turns into parenting and you no longer feel emotionally safe. And by the time you physically walk away, you've been gone on the inside for a while. And then there's the moon that refuses to give up on the magic. Leo moon. You stay for the heart and leave for the dignity. You stay because you remember how beautiful it was. Keep giving chances, keep pouring warmth, keep hoping it comes back to life. You leave the second your dignity is on the line, when you feel unseen, disrespected, or small. Once you remember your worth, you're done. But what about the moon that stays because they're always fixing everything? Virgo moon, you stay to fix it. Leave to save yourself. You stay because you see potential. You tweak, adjust, or give, hoping you can fix the relationship into something healthy. You leave when the tiny issues become a constant drain and you realize you are doing all the work. You leave when your body and your anxiety say enough. And then there's the moon that stays to keep the peace. Libra moon. You stay for the harmony and leave for the balance. You stay because you want things to be fair, kind, and calm. You hold on to the potential version of the relationship, the one that could exist. You leave when you feel unheard, when you're the only one compromising, when peace becomes a performance. That's when you choose balance over harmony at any cost. Now, what about the moon that stays because the connection feels karmic? Scorpio moon. You stay for the soul bond and leave for the truth. You stay because the bond feels irreplaceable. It's deep, intense, magnetic. It doesn't feel casual, ever. You leave when trust is broken or when the connection stops transforming and just becomes pain. And when you leave, there's no coming back. That chapter is dead. But some moons stay because hope just refuses to die. Sagittarius moon. You stay for the hope, leave for the freedom. You stay because you believe it can get better. You see the possibility, the growth, the future that could happen. You leave when the relationship starts shrinking you instead of expanding you. The moment it feels like a cage instead of an adventure, you're gone. And now we get to the moon that stays out of pure responsibility. Capricorn moon. You stay for the commitment and leave for the reality. You stay because you take commitment seriously. You don't abandon ship just because it's hard. You double down and work harder. But you leave when you realize you're carrying the entire relationship on your back. When the weight outweighs the love, you quietly step out and you don't step back in. And then there's the moon that stays because it's trying to rationalize feelings that don't feel logical. Aquarius moon. You stay for the ideal and leave for the self. You stay because the idea of the relationship makes sense. You rationalize, analyze, try to be understanding for both people. You leave when the emotional chaos gets too loud and you can't hear yourself anymore. Once the internal switch flips and you choose yourself, it's over. And finally, the moon that stays for the dream, not the person. Pisces moon. You stay for the dream and leave for the truth. You stay because you're in love with the essence of the person. You see their soul, their best self, their potential, and you hold on to that. You leave when a dream turns into pure exhaustion and your intuition gets louder than your hope. You drift out gently, but once you're gone, the emotional bond doesn't grow back. Every moon sign has a breaking point, the moment the emotional math stops adding up. You leave when the pain becomes more familiar than the comfort. Once your moon rewires, Venus stops romanticizing, Saturn says enough, and Pluto loses its grip, you're done. Not slowly, not eventually, done. You never return to a chapter you've emotionally closed. Now drop your moon sign in the comments, not just for the algorithm, but because naming it makes it conscious. It lets you say, okay, this explains everything. Now I understand myself. And if you stayed in relationships you outgrew, you weren't weak, you weren't blind, you weren't behind. You were following emotional patterns written into your chart. But now you see them, you're not repeating that story again. And if you want to go deeper, watch this next video right here. And I'll see you there. Bye!